Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to have a bit more of an in-depth look at the Lorraine 155, as it has changed quite a bit in the past few weeks. Speaking of that really, this video should have been out quite a lot sooner, but the recording software I use developed the annoying habit of deleting any file of gameplay that I recorded immediately after I finished recording it. It would just say 0 bytes, and it was really odd. But I think I've sort of fixed it now, which is annoying because I have lost some really good games, but hopefully the ones I've got today are, well, passable anyway. So, as you all probably know, the Lorraine, when it first came out, had 0 degrees of gun depression, meaning it couldn't really perform like any other tank in the game, or it couldn't really perform in most situations at all, really, as you couldn't fire on a tank directly in front of you if it wasn't, you know, giant. So it made it very frustrating to play and not really very fun, but thanks to my good friend Iron Physic, he dug up some documentation on this tank and has managed to get the gun depression lowered to 5 degrees and given it a lot of elevation as well, including the 20mm, which is really nice. So does that mean this vehicle is now really good, you know, a proper meta vehicle? I don't think it is. As the title puts it, it's very big, and it's at a battle rating where, you know, most of the tanks you're going to fight have a very quick reload, or at least a very quick reload relative to the maximum 20 seconds you can get for reloading the Lorraine. And I don't really think it works that well. You know, it's very big, it doesn't really have versatility in where it can fire, has no armor whatsoever, and it actually has a gap, as you can probably tell, in the front of the tank where the breach is, so, you know, MG fire can knock your gun out, and that means you're basically, you know, what can you do in that situation? Its maneuverability is okay, it's quick, it did have a bit of a mobility nerf at the same time as when they changed the gun depression, making it a little bit less speedy, so you can't get to those positions you could before. You're about as fast as you know, the average medium tank now, which is far from a bad thing. But I'll get into more of the little idiosyncrasies in a bit. Before that, I'll show you the lineup that I've been using for 4.3 France. So this is the lineup that I've been using for 4.3, and before I go into it directly, I want to say that this thing probably is better off being played in a 4.7 lineup, because you have things like the Jumbo, you have the SA-50 Sherman and the FL-10 if you have that Sherman as well, and it fits much better into that lineup because, you know, if it's a map that this thing isn't really worth playing on, you can use those other vehicles much better than you can use this. But for the sake of consistency in the way that I'm doing the lineups, the vehicle that I cover will always be the top tier vehicle. So this is the lineup I've been using. If you are at a 4.3 game, the ARL is a pretty good backup for it, just because it's still a decent heavy tank. The gun will be as reliable as it ever will be, really. It's not a bad gun. The armor on this thing can stop Russian guns very well, not so much German guns, but if you're angled and you know what you're doing, you can have a pretty good time with this one. So it's a good backup, but not really if you're above maybe 4.7, 5.0 BR. If you are, though, the M10 is still going to be decently effective, and it's what I've been using as well as backup, because even in up tier you do have a gun that can deal with most things pretty reliably. It's one of the better options you can take over the light tank, the AMX, just because you need something with a gun that can be used at a bit more of a longer range, and something that can, well, have APHE and one-shot things quite effectively, as this thing is still decent for its battle rating, and, you know, even in a couple of battle ratings above it. For your aircraft, I will always never stop recommending the Yak-9T. I think it's fantastic. You can engine deck pretty much, well, I think any vehicle that you can actually see at this battle rating with this aircraft. And as well, you do have the versatility of taking out aircraft as well, so it's pretty much the best option you can have. If you don't have it, though, I think taking something like the Helldiver or the F6F5N, as well, as they both carry some decent armament, well, ordnance to take out tanks with, and they're decent fighter aircraft as well, despite the SP2C's wonky flight model. For your SPA, there isn't really another option, to be honest, apart from the Bofors limousine. It's still okay at what it does. You can take out tanks with it quite effectively if you put yourself in a really cheeky position, and I think it's pretty decent. You know, it's okay at taking out aircraft. The accuracy isn't that great, but the PTAA that you can get in Tier 1 just doesn't really cut it at a higher BR just because of the reload and how, well, weak it is against other vehicles. So that's the lineup that I've been using, and let's get into the games. Right, so the first match is on Tunisia, and we are facing Germany and Japan. What I really wanted to do on the early stage of this map is get around the back of A. I could be covering B or C at this point, but because I am so big and have no armor, it's not really the best option. I'm better off having constant protection from all sides and being around teammates, as the rest of the map is quite open at this point. So I'm just trying to get a little bit of a flank on and hopefully not meet too many tanks head-on, so that's why I'm going around the back of A, except through the middle. So I do see something distinctly German with the smoke around the back of the tank. It's probably going to be a Panzer IV, and I want to try and get a bit closer just so I can hit the back of the turret. I do just miss by a fraction and hit the engine, but thankfully he does burn out quite easily, which is something that never really seems to happen to me, so I'm very thankful of that. So I want to push up here and get out of the main line the enemy tanks are going to take and hide it in the back of here while my reload is done. Luckily I do meet another Panzer III at the crux of the reload there and manage to take him out. So I don't really want to rush directly back because you need to take in mind with the reload, and if I do rush into something I can't really get out of danger that quickly. So it's just going to be hiding around here, making sure I know where my team is so I know where no one is really going to come and shoot me from. So what I decide to do here is come around this side, make sure to check my left and my right, so that nothing is looking down this road. This doesn't take much to be too careful. And I'm going to try and sit on top of this mound here and maybe put some fire down on some tanks that are coming back from their spawn, trying to come back from the A point. Now, I do decide after a bit of time this isn't really a good idea because I am quite exposed, and if I get shot there's only one place I can retreat from, and people can tail me and find me quite easily, so this isn't really the best spot I can be in. So I'm just going to cut out a little bit of time wasting here. I do see a Stug coming up from the spawn though, so I'm just waiting here behind this corner, behind this truck, just so I can get a bit of like an ambush on him. Wait till he levels out in front of me, hit the bit of armor I wasn't really trying to hit, but I do take out his barrel. But it's something this tank is quite good for. You don't always one-shot a tank. The HE round isn't as powerful as some people probably think it might be, but you do almost always disable them in some way. So what I'm going to do is just go for the cupola, as it's going to make the shrapnel from the HE go directly down through the rest of the tank, which is going to be a pretty reliable one-shot. So bear in mind here, this guy, he had quite a lot of kills. I think he had 4 kills at this point, so I know 100% sure he's going to come back in a plane, so I don't really want to go out in the open until I know what he's in and see if I can take him out with 20 mil. So I'm going to remain in the A point here and try and throw some covering fire out towards B and A. I'm just checking if anything's coming back from the spawn at this point, because obviously if I push back to put some covering fire over at B from the safety of the town and someone comes up behind me, there's not really much I can do whatsoever. So another thing to note is this thing is very, very weak to planes. The 20 mil might seem like it's a good option, but because the crew member is very exposed, they die very, very quickly, and if someone's flying right at you, your crew member arming the 20 is going to die like pretty much immediately, so it's not too viable an option. So I know there's a T-34 captured around here, and I think he captured B, and I'm imagining he's moving back into A now, so I'm just watching and seeing if he's going to come through one of these points here, as I don't really know where he is. I'm looking up at the sky as well to make sure that plane isn't coming in, and he does shoot me from the right side here, and this is the only time that I haven't lost a vital part of my tank from getting shot, really. So a lot of luck in this game, and I do manage to take him out as well. Aiming underneath the side armor so I can push right through and not get caught on these extra side armor of the T-34. So to 1 in I, he comes in, he misses his bombs thankfully, and I switch to the direct control of the 20 mil to try and take him out. You can see just how quickly this thing just gets killed off. Like, I'm not really very good at the aim, but straight away, like in the first few shots, it's pretty much dead, and there's not really too much I can do now. But I do have one more gun, don't I? I have the big old 155, but I don't really think that's really going to be too viable. I mean, obviously I'm not going to hit him with it, so I'm just going to kind of come around here, try and get him nicely lined up. It's going right in the head-on, get the aim, and I guess that works just fine. Very well. Okay, fine. So that's the threat annihilated of the BF-109. with extreme prejudice there, and I'm going to take this sort of lull in the tension to sit in the protected part of the cap zone. You might not know where this is. It's like a little alcove here in between these buildings where you can kind of cap the point, but I'm not going to try and cap the point. I'm just going to get a crew member back, as this thing does hemorrhage crew members quite rapidly, so the more the merrier really. But sadly the 20mm gunner is counted as the machine gunner, so it replaces the commander in the tank and not the 20mm, which is quite annoying, but it doesn't really matter. So I drove outside of the town, tried to put a pot shot into something into spawn, but it had spawn protection, so obviously it didn't kill him. What I'm trying to do here is aim to get around the back of B and do a double take and notice a very stoic Stug there just sitting on the side, not really doing much, and take him out as well. So I'm going to rush my way, hopefully not getting shot from spawn, to sit on the overlook that looks over B and a bit of my side of the map. So I imagine at this point in the match, most of the enemy team are going to be around that area, or at least pushing from C and now to B as the AA is now capping it. So I should hopefully get some shots on some unaware tanks that aren't really looking for a tank in that position, as that is, you know, their advantage point on their side of the map. So just making sure nothing's coming from either spawn here, so I'm not going to get shot in the side or the back, as you need to be really, really careful when playing this thing, as the armor is not going to save you whatsoever. So I'm just being a bit too cautious maybe, but I do have the time to take, as I don't really want to die at this point in the match. And I know that some tanks are going to be coming from their left and right spawn, as quite a lot of tanks have just died, and C's been captured as well, so I need to make sure to watch out for that spot as well. And I can see a Chaffee coming from the left spawn there to come towards B, and I'm just going to get into a position here, not drive out too far, and just wait here, push behind the trees, so I'm not going to hit those with the giant HE round, and get a bit of a botch shot there, shot a bit too late, but luckily did just clip the back of the turret. And so I'm just going to reverse here, and hopefully I was thinking of waiting to see what came from C, but there is a Panzer IV-H that is rocking his way directly towards the B point and trying to save the AA. I'm going to drive out maybe a bit too quickly here to try and get a shot off on him. I try and aim the shot just underneath the skirts on the turret, but just miss and clip it so I don't one-shot him. He's pretty much out of the fight though anyway, so I'm just going to drive round here so I'm not going to get shot from the guy coming from C, which does sadly put me right in the open, and as I'm not really expecting anything else around here, I do get my gun taken out by a Panzer IV it is, and I can't see him at this point, so I don't think to reverse out of the way, which does get me killed. Maybe if I reversed straight away I would have lived, but sadly not. But still, that's a pretty decent game for the Lorraine in my opinion. So on to the next match. So the next match is Volkolomsk, and it's the weird variation that you sometimes get with just the A point in the town in the middle, which isn't really a great map for me because there's loads of fences and trees around, and they do not quite agree with my only HE round lineup that I have here for this tank. So I want to start off the match by not flanking too far south, as no one on my team's doing it, and if I'm out there on my own, there's a lot of tanks there, I don't have the reload to take out more than one tank. So I'm going to sit in this tree line here with this T-34 and try and see if I can kill a few tanks coming from their spawn at a weird angle, try and flank around the south of A, as I know quite a few people do this or have done this in the past, and I thought it was, it was a better option than just going straight into the town and risking hitting a fence or something early on. But I see something there, and it's a command Panzer. I try to just get the front part of the turret, just get the side there, and try get the rest of the crew member there. Crew members, Christ, I messed that sentence up. But now I have this nice defilade here with cover to reload my gun, and just going to wait for that and then push back up into the tree line if nothing else shows up, and then make my way into the south of A because it's not really very covered, and a lot of tanks are now popping up just getting into the southmost part of A. I think I can give a little bit more support over there than I can over here, as the T-34 can cover the south from anything flanking, and he's better suited to do it than I am anyway. So I'm just having a look here, and I can see something pop up, and I don't know if it's dead, so I want to just check, and instead of firing my round off, I'm going to use the 20mm to cut down the fences just to make sure there's nothing there that I can fire on. I think it was the Stug that died, but it's better to double check in this sense anyway. the T-34 does kill a Panzer IV flanking down from the south, which is good. So that would have probably caught me off guard and the game would have been ended a lot sooner. But I'm just using the cover of the tree line here to get up to the south of the town. This match isn't so much, you know, sick plays. It's more using the kind of the map to your advantage and supporting your team, and it's just placement really. And this vehicle is dependent on placement quite a lot, as it's not the most it's not the best in most situations. You need to be really careful with it. So I'm going to use the cover of the terribly anti-aliased, is that a word? Probably not, fences here and the trees to just kind of sit where I've got cover from the left to the right, and I saw two things fire roughly about there that hit the church. I'm not sure if it's what's in front of me or what's to the left. It was to the left, sadly, and I should have reacted a bit better on that part. But again, use the 20 to knock down the fences and get a shot right into the side. That never does get old, does it? So I'm going to sit with this house to my left here to make sure nothing's going to hit me from where the enemy are mainly at, which is to the left of me. Smart decision, that. So I'm just going to wait here for my reload, and I do take a shot at something in the distance and miss, but it's a lot of looking at one spot and there's not a lot to talk about. I see a Gepard rushing this T-34 here and annihilates him with the 20mm, which is pretty good at taking out lightly armoured targets. It sadly doesn't have much penetration, only 25mm, but for killing, you know, very lightly armoured things like M16s, like M19s, things that you can chip away exposed crew members with, it does do really well at that. So I'm just going to sit in the town here and provide some cover for my team, as they are the ones pushing out towards the spawn. I can see the hull of a flak bus there, and hull break him, and that is the most satisfying thing I can ever describe, hull breaking flak buses with a round like this. But there isn't really any need for me to push out. You know, I have cover. I've got cover from the left and the right. The team are being the bulk of the force pushing them back to the spawn, and all I can do is answer the door, apparently, so I'll be right back. Right, where were we? So, all I'm really doing here is just waiting in the town. I'm chipping off a few of the tanks that are coming back out from their spawn, but there's no need for me to rush out at this point. The rest of the KV-1s and T-34s are going to be the main bulk of the force that are advancing on the spawn, and I don't need to be a part of that. I can just wait back, put down covering fire on some things that are giving them trouble, and just to not put myself in a situation where I'm going to get hit. But that's all there really is for the remainder of this game, and the reason why I wanted to show it, despite it not being the most impressive in terms of kills, is that to be good at this tank, it's all about where you position yourself. You know, you need to be relatively in constant cover and constant support, because whereas, yeah, you can annihilate pretty much anything you meet, apart from that whirlwind that absorbed every single shrapnel piece of my round into the guns there. But you need to be supported. You are a support vehicle, and in that regard, all you're really that good at is being around the rest of the team and helping them. You can't really go off on your own because, you know, as I keep saying, your reload is too slow. If you run into more than one vehicle on a flank together, you're not going to get out of it very well. You know, you're an absolute unit, massive. Hiding somewhere isn't really that effective that you might be able to do in maybe a Scorpion or something. And then with that tank as well, you have the advantage of having a much quicker reload as well. So this tank is somewhat hard to rate, actually, just because it's good at what it does if you play it as a support vehicle, which is what I think it should, well, the way it should be played. And it can be very effective in that role, but ultimately there's a threshold to how effective it can be. And I think that does limit what I can actually rate it as, just because as a vehicle on its own, it can't really, you know, get loads and loads of kills and survive the whole match. And just because it has no armor and it's so big and the reload is so slow that it can't really, it's not a survivable, really, it's not a survivable vehicle. The essence of a survivable vehicle is, you know, speed, maneuverability, armor, and a quick reload, I'd say, just because these are all factors that keep you alive, and the Lorraine has the opposite of all of them. Apart from mobility, it is quite quick, but it's not really quick enough. The nerf to how quick this thing was hit it to a point where it's now not really any faster than the T-34. I mean, the reverse gear is still good, but it's not really anything to, you know, write home about, that kind of thing. But at this battle rating at 4.3 to 5.3, there's only a few things that your reload is shorter than, and mainly howitzers around your size. But so the majority of tanks that are shooting at you will get a good few hits in before you can fire back. And because of the way this tank works, is that the breach will absorb almost all of the rounds, almost all of the shots that you take. And at the same time, you can get penned by 50 cals within a few hundred meters. And I think at any range, really, if anyone gets any kind of caliber of round into the middle, where the breach and the drives and the barrel are, it's just going to get knocked out. And the main cause of death for me is just getting hit from anywhere in any direction and losing my ability to fire. And it just gets me killed. It definitely does get me killed the most, I think. And it means that this vehicle can only work in certain situations. So I don't really think ultimately it's that good. I mean, it's fun, as I kept saying before with the flak buses. Hull breaking things and killing stuff with high caliber HE will never get old. It's going to be something that's constantly enjoyable. But from a standpoint of giving this vehicle an objective rating of how effective it is, I can't really take that fun factor into account because it's subjective and doesn't really matter. So this vehicle works best on maps where you can retreat easily and cover a wide area, for example. So what I mean is that all you want to do is put yourself in moderate cover where most of your tank is covered from at least two sides. And you can fire down a particular road or over a ridge or something like that. And after you fire, you have the ease of being able to reverse out of your spot and wait somewhere else while you reload. That's not going to put you in a bad spot. The example would be down the end of a street. You can cover a long street, and I'd say even if you fire your gun and you miss or you don't kill the target, you can reverse back around the corner, and keeping the distance between you and what you're possibly shooting at into account, meaning that they will not be able to rush around that corner and kill you before you've reloaded. And whereas I can't really give you lots of different examples of where this vehicle works, keeping that in mind I think will help a lot, and it certainly helped me when I'm thinking about where I'm going to go on a match. I need to put myself in a spot where I can get away very quickly to compensate for the reload, and get myself into a spot where no one can shoot me from at least two spots. So what I mean by saying that your left, your right, and your front and your back are different places you can get shot from. If you can cover two of those, you're going to be pretty much fine. And that of course goes for pretty much every tank, but for this one you need to keep it in mind even more because of how big you are and because of how little armor you have. So just putting yourself in that spot is the best you can do. Apart from that, you want to stick with your teammates, because you might be 3 T-34s, for example, that you're rushing around with, and you might run into a Churchill Mark 7. They can't really deal with that, and if there are other tanks supporting that Churchill, they can't really push and flank it. And that's why you come in to help them advance. You are a very good support vehicle. You don't want to be at the front lines with these tanks, you want to be just behind them. You want to have the adaptability to poke out and attack what they're attacking without putting yourself in too much danger. And that's where I think this tank really works best. But the downsides for me are just a bit too hard hitting to really give it a high rating, because it's so easy to kill. You know, to have a tank of being effective, it needs to be survivable, and a tank that isn't doesn't work. And this is one of the least survivable tanks I've played in a really long time. You know, you can get killed by any plane coming down at you. Thank you, motorbike. Much appreciated. As I was saying, you can get killed by pretty much any plane coming down to hit you. Any caliber of round can kill you from the back and the front if they get just the right spot through the breach. And if you get hit anywhere, you know, you're going to lose a vital part of your tank, and it's generally 9 times out of 10 the breach. As I said in the first game, I rarely have an instance where something hits me and it doesn't knock anything out. It's really, really rare. And on top of this as well, you're a casemate. You don't have a turret, and the adaptability isn't something I can really rate highly. So I'm going to cut my rambling off here, and I'm going to rate the Lorraine with a 5 out of 10. There guys, I really hope you enjoyed. Sorry it's been so long. I've had a lot of technical problems and real life things kind of crop up, so it hasn't been that easy to get these out, but I have been streaming a lot more. If some of you don't know, I do have taken up a bit of a streaming thing, and it's quite fun. I do that probably twice a week, usually. Touch wood. But yeah, it's quite fun. So if you haven't followed me on Twitch, you're very welcome to come along and have a chat. It's always a really fun time, and you're very welcome to ask me any questions or anything like that. And at least it's somewhere where I'm active. You know, I know I'm not as active as I like to be on the YouTube at the moment. The YouTube, I sound like I'm 80, but I'm a bit more active around there and Discord as well. So, you know, no pressure. I'm not saying you have to come and follow me because I'm that important, but if you'd like to come and have a chat anyway, you're very welcome to. So, I'm going to stop myself rambling again and say thank you very much for watching, everyone. Really hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.